Chapter 12 of the Second Latchkey. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Second Latchkey by Charles Norris and Alice Muriel Williamson. Chapter 12. The Crystal. Motoring back from Valley House to the Knoll Hotel, Annesley was asking herself whether she might dare refer to the Monarchic and mention the story she had read in the Morning Post. She burned to do so, yet stopped each time a question pressed to her lips, remembering Knight's eyes as he had looked at the Countess in the Savoy restaurant the day before the wedding. Perhaps the wish would have conquered if some imp had not whispered, "What about that purple envelope, addressed in a woman's handwriting? Maybe it was from her, hinting to see him again, and that is what has put this plan into his head. Perhaps he brought up the subject of the Countess on purpose to make them invite her here." This thought caused the Countess de Santiago to seem a powerful person, with an influence over Knight, though he had appeared not to care for her. Could it be that he wanted an excuse to have her near him? The suggestion closed Annesley's mouth by making her afraid that she was turning into a suspicious creature, like jealous brides she had read about. She determined to be silent as a self-punishment, and firmly steered the Monarchic into a backwater of her thoughts, while Knight talked of the Valley House party and their credulous superstition. "Every man Jack and every woman Jill of the lot believe in that crystal and the clairvoyant nonsense," he laughed. "I mentioned it for fun, but I went on simply to pull their legs. I hope you don't mind having the Countess down, do you, child? Of course I made it out to be a favor that so wonderful a being should consent to come at call. But between us, Anita, the poor woman will fall over herself with joy. She's a restless, lonely creature who has drifted about the world without stopping anywhere long enough to make friends, and I have a notion that her heart's desire is to get into society in England. This will give her a chance, because these good ladies and gentlemen who are dying to see what she's like, and persuade her to tell their pasts and futures, are at the top of the tree. It's a cheap way for us to make her happy, and we can afford it." "Don't you believe she really is clairvoyant, and sees things in her crystal?" Annesley ventured. It was then that Knight made her heart beat by answering with a question. "Didn't you read in the newspapers about the queer thing that happened on board the Monarchic?" "Yes, I did read it," the girl said, in so stifled a voice that the reply became a confession. "Why didn't you tell me so?" "Because, the day I heard you were on the Monarchic, I couldn't remember what I'd read. It was vague in my mind. No other reason?" "Only that I fancied—" "You fancied I didn't like to talk about the Monarchic?" "Well, when the Countess spoke of it, you looked cross." "I was cross, but only with the way she spoke, as if she and I had come over together because we were pals. That's all, though I've every cause to hate the memory of that trip. When did you remember what you had read in the newspapers?" "Only this evening." "I thought so, at dinner. I saw a look come over your face." "I didn't know you noticed me." "I'm always noticing you, and I was proud of you tonight. Well, you remembered about a man on board being robbed, and a lady, an amateur clairvoyant, seeing things in a crystal. I thought it must have been the Countess de Santiago." "It was, though her name was kept out of the papers by her request. She's sensitive about the clairvoyant stuff, afraid people may consider her a professional, and look down on her from patronizing social heights. Of course, I suppose it's nonsense about seeing things in a glass ball, but I believe she does contrive to take it seriously, for she seems in earnest. She did tell people on board ship things about themselves, true things, they said, and they ought to know. As for the jewel affair," he added, "nobody could be sure if there was anything in her visions, but people thought them extraordinary, even the captain, a hard-headed old chap. You see, a yacht had been sighted the evening before the robbery while the passengers were at dinner. It might have kept near, with lights out, for the Monarchic is one of the huge, slow-going giants, and the yacht might have been a regular little greyhound. It seems she didn't answer signals. The captain hadn't thought much of that, because there was a slight fog, and she could have missed them. But it came back to him afterwards, and seemed to bear out the Countess's rigmarole. Besides, there was the finding of the patent lock, where she told the man Jedfield he ought to look for it." "I don't remember that in the paper." "It was in several, if not all. She saw the missing lock, a thing that goes over a bolt and prevents it sliding back, in one of the lifeboats upon the boat deck, caught in the canvas covering. Well, it was there, and there could be no suspicion of her putting the thing where it was found, so as to make herself seem a true prophetess. She couldn't have got to the place. That's why people were so impressed with the rest of the visions. We're all inclined to be superstitious. Even I was interested. Though I don't pin my faith in such things, I asked her to look into the crystal, and see if she could tell me what had become of my gold repeater, which disappeared the same night. "Oh!" exclaimed Annesley. "So you had something stolen?" "It looked like it. Anyhow, the watch went, and the Countess lost a ring during the trip, a valuable one, I believe. She couldn't see anything for herself, but she got a glimpse of my repeater in the pocket of a red waistcoat. Nobody on board confessed to a red waistcoat, and in the searching of passengers' luggage, which I should have proposed myself if I hadn't been among the robbed, nothing of the sort materialized. However, that proved nothing. Jedfield's pearls and other trinkets must have been somewhere on board, in someone's possession, if the yacht vision wasn't true. Yet the strictest search gave no sign of them. It was a miracle how they were disposed of, unless they were thrown overboard and picked up by someone in the plot, as the Countess said." "Is that why you hate to think of the trip, because you lost your watch?" Annesley asked. "Yes, just that. It wasn't so much the loss of the watch, though it was a present and I valued it, as because it made me feel such a fool. I left the repeater under my pillow when I got up in the middle of the night to go on deck, thinking I heard a cry. I couldn't have heard one, for nobody was there. And next morning, when I went to look at the time, my watch was equally invisible. Then there was the business of the passengers being searched, and the everlasting talk about the whole business. One got sick and tired of it. I got tired of the Countess and her crystal too, but the effect is passing away now. I expect I can stand her if you can." Annesley said that she would be interested. She refrained from adding that she did not intend to make use of the seeress's gift for her own benefit. The Countess de Santiago wired her acceptance of the invitation, and appeared at the Knoll Hotel on Saturday with a maid and a good deal of luggage. Annesley had secretly feared that the effect of the beautiful lady on the guests of the hotel would be overpowering, and had pictured her, brilliantly coloured and exquisitely dressed, breaking like a sunburst upon the dining-room at luncheon-time. But she had underrated the Countess's cleverness and sense of propriety. The lady arrived in a neat, tailor-made travelling dress of russet brown tweed which, with a plain toque of brown velvet and fur, cooled the ruddy flame of her hair. It seemed to Annesley also that her lips were less red than before, and though she was as remarkable as ever for her beauty, she was not now to be remarked for meretriciousness. She was pleasanter in manner too, as well as in appearance, and Annesley's heart, which had difficulty in hardening itself for long, was touched by the Countess's thanks for the invitation. "You are so happy and wrapped up in each other, I didn't expect you to give me a thought," the beautiful woman said. "You don't know what it means to be asked down here, after so many lonely days in town, and to find that you and Dawn are going to give me some new friends." This note, which Knight had also struck in explaining the Countess's heart's desire, was the right note to enlist Annesley's sympathy. One might have thought that both had guessed this. Annesley and Knight gave their dinner party in a private room adjoining their own sitting-room, and connected also with another smaller room, which they had fitted up for a special purpose. This purpose was to enshrine the seeress and her crystal. As Knight had said, she seemed to take her clairvoyant powers seriously, and insisted that she could do herself justice only in a room arranged in a certain way. In the afternoon she directed that the furniture should be removed with the exception of one small table and 2 chairs. Even the pictures had to be taken down, and under the Countess's supervision purple velvet draperies had to be put up, covering the walls and window. These draperies she had brought with her, as they had curtain rings sewn on the upper edge, which could be attached to picture hooks or nails. From the same trunk came also a white silk table cover embroidered in gold, with figures representing the signs of the zodiac. There were in addition 3 purple velvet cushions, 2 for the chairs, and 1, the Countess explained, for the table, to make an arm-rest. By her further desire a large number of hothouse lilies in pots were sent for, and ranged on the floor round the walls. As for the Turkish carpet of banal reds, blues, and greens, it had to be concealed under rugs of black fur which, luckily, the hotel possessed in plenty. It was all very mysterious and exciting, and Annesley could imagine the effective background these contrivances would give the shining figure of the Countess. When later on she saw her guests dressed for dinner, the girl realized even more vividly the genius of the artist who had planned the picture. For the Countess de Santiago wore a clinging gown made in Greek fashion, of a supple white material shot with interwoven silver threads. She wore her copper-red hair in a classic knot with a wreath of emerald laurel leaves. She would gleam like a moonlit statue in her lily-perfumed purple shrine, Annesley thought, and was not surprised that the lady should achieve an instant success with the country folk who had begged for an invitation to meet her. The Countess de Santiago did not seem to mind answering questions about her powers, which everyone asked across the dinner table. She said that since her 7th birthday she had been able, under certain circumstances, to see hidden things in people's lives, and future events. Her first experience as a child was being shut up in a darkened room, and looking into a mirror, where figures and scenes appeared like waking dreams. She had been frightened, and screamed to be let out. Her mother had taken pity and released her, saying that after all it was what might be expected from the 7th child of a 7th child, born on All Saints' Eve. The Nelson Smiths' guests listened breathlessly to every word, and were enchanted when she promised to give each man and woman a short sitting with her crystal after dinner. Nothing was said about the Purple Room, so that the surprise could not help being impressive. It was a delightful dinner, well thought out between the host and the head waiter, but no one wished to linger over it. Never had bridge friends been so eager to get to work as these people were to take their turn with the Countess and her crystal. At Lady Annesley Seton's suggestion they drew lots for these turns, and Constance herself drew the first chance. She and the gleaming figure of the Countess went out together, and 10 or 12 minutes later she returned alone. Everyone stared eagerly to see if she looked excited, and it took no stretch of imagination to find her face flushed and her eyes dilated. "Well, has she told you anything wonderful?" A clamour of voices joined in the question. "Yes, she has," replied Constance. "She's simply uncanny. She could pick up a fortune in London in one season, if she were a professional. She has told me in what sort of place the heirlooms are now, but that we shall never see them again." So saying, Lady Annesley Seton plumped down on a sofa beside her hostess, as the next person hurried off to plunge into the mysteries. "I feel quite weak in the knees," Constance whispered to Annesley. "Has she told you anything?" "No," said the girl. "I don't want to know things." She might have added, "things told by her," but she did not say this. Constance shivered. "The woman frightened me with what she knew. I mean, not about our robbery, that's a trifle, but about the past. That crystal of hers seems to be a sort of town topics. But I must say she didn't foretell any horrors for the future, not for me personally. If she goes on as she's begun, she can do what she likes with us all. Dear little Anne, you must ask her often to your house when you're finding your feet, and I'm helping you, in London. I prophesy that she'll prove an attraction. Why, it would pay to have a room fitted up for her in purple and black, with relays of fresh lilies." Annesley smiled. But she made up her mind that, if a room were done in purple and black with relays of lilies anywhere for the Countess de Santiago, it would not be in her house. Unless, of course, Knight begged it of her as a favour. And even then... But somehow she didn't believe, despite certain appearances, that Knight was anxious to have his old friend near him. He had the air of one who was paying a debt, and she remembered how he had said, on the day of their wedding, "We will find a time to pay back the favours they've done us." This visit and dinner and introduction to society was perhaps his way of paying the Countess. Only, was it payment in full, or an instalment? Annesley wondered. Vaguely she wondered also what had become of Dr. Torrance and the Marchese di Muriel. Would the next payment be for them, and what form would it take? She was far from guessing. There was no anticlimax that night in the success of the Countess with her clients. They were deeply impressed, and even startled. Not one woman said to herself that she had been tricked into giving the seeress a lead. There was nothing in the past hidden from that crystal, and the dark eyes which gazed into it. As for the future, her predictions were remarkable, and she must have given people flattering accounts of their characters, as everyone thought the analysis correct. What a pity, the women whispered, that such an astonishing person was not a professional, who could be paid in cash. As it was, she would expect to be rewarded with invitations, and though she was presentable, "You know, my dear, she's frightfully pretty, the red-haired sort, that's the most dangerous, not a bit safe to have about one's men." Still, no price is too high. We shall all be fighting for her, or over her. And before the evening had come to an end, the Countess de Santiago had several invitations for town and country houses. To be sure, they were rather informal, but the beautiful lady knew when to be lenient, and so she accepted them all. "She told me that our stolen things are hidden away forever, and that we'll be robbed again," Connie said to her husband on the way back to Valley House. "She told me the same thing," said Dick, "and I hope to goodness we may be. We've done jolly well out of that last affair." "Yes," his wife agreed. "The only thing I don't like about it is the mystery. It makes me feel as if something might be hanging over one's head." "Over the trustees' heads," laughed Lord Annesley Seton. "I wish the other night could be what the Countess calls the first of a series." "The first of a series!" Constance repeated. "What a queer expression! What was she talking about?" "She was looking in her crystal," answered Dick, slowly, as if something he had seen rose again before his eyes. Constance was pricked with curiosity. "You might tell me what the woman said!" she exclaimed. "You haven't told me what message she had for you." "I've just said that she prophesied we should be robbed again." "That's only one thing. What about the rest?" "Oh, a lot of stuff which wouldn't interest you." "You can keep your secret, and I'll keep mine," remarked Dick Annesley Seton, aggravatingly. "Anyhow, for the present, we'll see how it works out." "See how what works out?" his wife echoed. "The series." Chapter 12